Hello everyone, in this video I will show you how I paint Marvel Crisis Protocol bases. This will include the small and medium bases in a variety of different ways. Also, this video can get kind of long, so if there's any base that you want to learn how to paint in particular, feel free to skip ahead to that part of the video. Alright, let's jump in. We're going to be base coating our bases in two different forms of gray. We're going to use a standard gray for the concrete color, and then we're going to use a mixture of black and gray for our asphalt, or what would be the street. I like to start by painting the asphalt color. We're going to go ahead and paint this on all the bases that have a raised area. That's because in my mind, when I look at these bases, if it has a raised area, either next to a drain or a crosswalk or whatever, I expect that to be sidewalk, and I expect the rest of the base to be the street. So we'll go ahead and just take that asphalt color and cover it all over that part of the base. Next, I'm going to take some of our bases that are completely flat, and I'm going to paint them in the asphalt color. That's because these flat bases could be either or. We can either paint them in all concrete, so that, our miniature is standing on the sidewalk, or we can paint them on asphalt and then paint other designs on it to give the implication that they're standing in the street or in a crosswalk or a number of different areas. For the metal and brick bases, we're going to either paint them in the asphalt color or the concrete color. And this is just going to set up an undertone for the metal and the brick that we're going to paint later on. After the base coat of the asphalt color has finished drying, we're going to go ahead and come in with the concrete color. We're going to paint this on all the bases that we want to be sidewalk or to come out gray, and then we're going to paint the raised areas on the bases that are going to include both the street and the sidewalk. For the bases with the raised area, I like to put down a piece of masking tape. That way when I paint the concrete on it, it's a smooth separating line between the two colors. Once you've got the masking tape in the correct position where you want it, you can go ahead and just paint on the concrete color. Once you finish painting on the concrete color, you don't have to wait for it to dry. Just remove the masking tape, and you have a crisp line separating the two colors. Before we move on to the next step, we have to go back to a couple of the bases that have manholes on them. And we're going to have to paint the manhole cover in a gray as a base coat to set up for how we're going to paint the metal. Once that dries, we're officially done with the base coating process of these bases. And we're going to move on to a Knoll oil wash. So we're going to go ahead and give each of the bases a Knoll oil wash on both the asphalt and the concrete colors. And you don't need to be scarce with this, you can give them a heavy wash. Another thing that you want to pay attention to is that the Knoll oil wash needs to get into all the cracks, holes, and crevices of the base. That way we're able to create a high contrast with the next step, so these lines and cracks in the bases really pop out. After the wash has dried, we're going to take our original asphalt color and our original concrete color, and we're going to go over to the bases and either use a stippling technique where we lightly tap on the base, creating a texture with the paint, or dry brushing. It's important that when we're doing both of these, we avoid the cracks and crevices of the base. This is because we want the cracks and the crevices to stay really dark, while the rest of the base becomes a lot lighter. And as you can see, if I get too much paint on the base, I'll take my thumb and I'll tap it to move it off. That's because we want the base to stay pretty dirty looking, while also having some clean aspects. When we look at the street or we look at the sidewalk in our day-to-day lives, you'll notice that parts of it will look dirty and parts of it will look clean. And this is the thing that we're really trying to create with these bases right here. Feel free to really play around in this step and see how dirty you want the base to be, or how clean you want to make it, or how realistic that you want to make it. This is kind of really up to you and how much you want to dry brush and how much you want to stipple. once we get to the metal bases and brick bases, I basically have two techniques in which I will paint them. I'll paint one of the set of bricks to be red, and I'll paint one of the set of bricks to be gray. I do this because models that have a lot of red on them, like Deadpool for instance, I don't want to stick him on a base with red bricks, because then he'll blend in. He looks a lot better having a base with gray bricks on it, and this is usually when I paint this in. I'm going to paint some of the gray on the bricks, and then I'll come in and paint some of the gray on the metal parts as well. When I paint the metal, I'm going to use a silver, copper, bronze, as well as the base coat that's underneath. When I paint the metal, I never fill it out entirely. I leave some of that base coat shining through. As you can see here, when I paint the grading on this base, I'm only going to do maybe 50% of the silver covering over that gray. The reason for it is I don't want all of this silver gray color to be shiny. I want it to look semi-dirty. When I do come back in and paint the copper and bronze color, I mainly like to paint these two colors over the parts that I've already painted silver, because I'm able to control how much of this metal feature is going to be shiny and how much it's not. If I paint it all silver and all copper or bronze, then the whole thing becomes shiny. Again, in this step, I'm really going to try to focus on not covering all of it in metal. It might look a little weird at first, but once we mix in all of the three colors, it'll look really natural and it'll make a lot of sense. I also like to come in with the Knoll oil and retouch up those cracks and crevices from earlier, just to make sure that they're super crisp. Here we're going to put some designs on our flat bases that are covered in the asphalt color. There's a couple of different ways that I like to put designs on these. I either imagine a solid yellow line that's going across, and we're in the middle of a street, or there's a bike lane or something like that. I also like to imagine that there's yellow dash marks, which would indicate that we're in the middle of the street, where cars are able to change lanes. Then I also like to paint a crosswalk. I know that there's a crosswalk for the medium-sized base, but for some of the characters that stand on the smaller bases, I like to put them in the crosswalk as well. To put these designs on these flat bases, I like to use masking tape, as you can see. This is just because I want an extremely straight line, and I want all the lines to be straight with each other in cohesion. You can obviously freehand these. If I'm in a hurry, I will freehand them, but I also like to use the masking tape just for precision. A nice thing about using the masking tape when painting these designs is that you can really focus on how much coverage you want of the color without worrying if the line is going to come out straight. What I mean is that if you want part of the dash mark or part of the straight line to appear faded, you're able to use a number of different painting techniques to apply the paint that would cause it to look that way, but you're able to do it without worrying where the paint's actually going. And then you just pull the tape off, and there you go, you got two perfectly straight dash marks. For the crosswalk base, I'm going to do the exact same thing that I did with the other two bases. The one side of it lines up with one of the cracks on the base, so I didn't really feel like I needed to use a piece of masking tape there. I just put it on one side and then painted the white and then ripped off the tape. I wanted the lines or the dash marks on the crosswalk to be at an angle, so you'll see me put tape on the base multiple different times at an angle and then paint the white and rip it off. I thought it looked pretty good with just these two dash marks, but it felt a little uneven as well. So I'm going to come in and make a third dash mark to really pull this base together. Since it's on the edge, I only need to use one piece of tape because the rest of it will just be off the base. Now moving on to the crosswalk bases. There's two different colors that I like to use for the bumpy area before you enter the crosswalk. One of it will be red and the other will be yellow. And then there's a couple of different techniques that I like to use to paint the lines for the crosswalk as well, and I'm going to show you those right now. As you can see, for this base that already has the red on it, I'm going to paint the lines of the crosswalk yellow. Now you don't have to use yellow, you could of course use white, and for later on when I paint the other two bases that have the yellow on the base already, I will be painting those lines white. Really the reason is I just want those two colors to be different and for them to be, separated and for them not to blend together. But you could really do any color that you want. If you were to do something like a, cyberpunk looking base, you could even paint them hot pink or like neon blue. I was looking at this crosswalk base, and for some reason it just didn't look right to me. So I decided to go back to it and add some white lines on the sides. Also, the last crosswalk base I painted, I freehand the crosswalk lines. It wasn't straight enough for me, so I decided I had to go back and put masking tape on it and straighten out the lines. This is kind of the reason that I choose to use masking tape in the first place, just because I want such a crisp edge. For the brick and metal bases, I usually paint the inner lines of the brick either a gray or a black. But I've seen some people paint it white. Although that's not really my preference, it does look good on occasion. So I'm going to show you what it's like with these lines being white. Moving on to these bases that both have a raised area next to a drain. I have them grouped together even though the small and the medium base have a little bit of different things that are done with them. As you can see, I put masking tape on the medium bases. That's because the amount of sidewalk area, I don't want to cover completely with a colored strip. Whereas the small bases, it's only a little bit of area, so we'll go ahead and paint all of it whatever color we're going to decide. So for each of them, I will paint one of them blue for disability parking. I'll paint one of them green for 20 minutes. I'll paint one of them red for no parking. And then I don't remember what yellow is, but I've seen it driving around on the street. So we're going to paint one of them yellow. And then we're also going to paint one of them with a yellow strip going through the street. So let's jump in. Every manhole that I've seen in my city has a little circle of concrete that goes around the manhole itself, separating the lid from the asphalt. So we're going to go ahead and paint a strip of concrete on this divider area. I'm also going to be adding in just a little bit of details on these drains here. In my city, I see like a little duck symbol or a little like wildlife symbol, so we're going to paint that on it. I also like to paint a black strip in the metal part right above the drain as showing that it goes inward. And if there needs to be some cleanup with Knoll oil, I'll put Knoll oil in the drains just to make sure that the recess areas stay pretty dark. If there's a part of the base that I don't like at any point in the painting process, I have no problem stopping mid-step and just making adjustments to it so that it looks exactly the way that I want. For these medium bases, we're going to paint them very similarly to how we painted the small bases, where I'm going to give one of the asphalt bases a yellow strip that just goes straight down, and the other one I'm going to do yellow dash marks. And of course, if you want to do it with white, you could do it with white. The only difference is that these medium bases have lights that are located in the middle. So one set of the lights will paint as yellow white lights, and the other set will paint as blue lights. lastly, we have the base with just the raised area. And on these ones, I like to paint, parking spaces or crosswalks, or just put design on them in general. I don't have any footage of me actually painting these ones, but if you use the same steps that you learned throughout the video, you're able to paint any of these designs. Now that all of our designs are finished on the bases, we have to paint the trim of the base black. I like to use one of these Gundam pens, or they're like a certain type of marker, and it's really nice because you can just put the edge of the base along the edge of the marker and go around in one quick swoop. Comes out really clean, looks really nice, and if it's not black enough, you can just wait for it to dry and then do a second layer or a second coat. If you look closely though, you can tell that the top part of the trim on the base, I paint gray. That's because I just want to create some separation between the base and the trim. You could paint that black, or you could paint it gray like I do. If you want to add in some extra details, I have printed out on a piece of just normal paper some magazines and newspapers. I uploaded this file to the Facebook page for Marvel Crisis Protocol. You can just go to the Files tab and download it and print it out. You just cut out a piece, whatever newspaper you want. So if, say you have a Captain America one, you can print out one that has to do with Captain America. Just crumble it up and PVA glue it to the base. If you want to make it look like there's some spillage on your base, like it could be coffee, it could be dirty water, it could be a number of different things, you just take some Agrax Earthshade and you just slob it all over there. Make sure that you put as thick as possible, and then when it dries, it'll look like a pool of liquid has come up there.